I am the host of the Compassionate You podcast, a place that my guests could come and we could talk about a journey they went through, an obstacle that they overcame, and in hopes that it would reach others that might have gone through something similar and made them feel not so alone. I'm also a mental health advocate and course creator. I created my first online self-compassion course. I'm a mom of one so far. He's 2 years old. And then I've been featured in Verily, Bustle, Fox 17, and Wood TV 8. The one thing that we all have in common today as we gather is one connecting factor: we're all mothers. In 2016, a study was taken, but it was published in 2018 by the Pew Research Center. And it shows that we are doing more with our children every day than they were in the 60s. We are spending more time with our kids, but we're also spending more time on other things, whether it's doing more at home or doing more outside of the home. And I really thought it was cool to see that fathers are also following suit. They are doing more for their kids as well. So the next time you feel like you're not doing enough, it statistically says you are. We need to feel like we have to be all put together and look perfect. We have to be a super involved parent. We have to be successful, whether it's in our job, in our home life, volunteering. And we do feel that pressure to try to have that side income somewhere to support our family. But these all relate in together to show us that the pressure derives from looking and being perfect in every way. The National Institute of Health actually polled moms that were stay-at-home moms, part-time working moms, and full-time moms, just to see if there was any difference in, if there was more stress for one or more stress for the other. But there was nothing that showed that there was. It just said that once a baby entered into the home, that life got a little bit more, crazy, and also a little bit more happy. But there's no room and reason to compare, because again, we are all doing it together and we're all doing it in a different way that works for our family. So, doesn't that feel good to hear that? I loved that statistic. And so the one thing it did show, though, that is when we went outside the home to do something for ourselves or anything that we wanted to do for work, that it improved our mental health and self-worth. And there's 2 steps that we both need to take to have a better life: is relax with self-care, which can be anything that is going on a walk, talking to a good friend, that kind of thing. Everyone has their own thing of what works best for them there. And then replenishing with self-compassion is my component, which is something we do internally. I was a wedding photographer, and it had become a really big part of my identity, and I still identify as a photographer. I always will. But when I got pregnant with my son, I was very adamant that I didn't want my child to define me, to the point that I kind of took it to an extreme. I booked 17 weddings in 6 months after I would have had him. And so I was just in my 3rd trimester doing all that and booking all that. And then when the baby came, I was so happy and it was such a good experience, but I had set myself up to not be able to enjoy it as much because I put too much pressure on myself to have to return and do everything how I could before having a baby. And also, I have a history of anxiety and depression in my family, and I didn't realize that I would have such a hard postpartum depression and anxiety stage. It's hard when you logically know that it's happening, and you just have to keep getting through. And so I still wanted to do everything myself. I wanted to take care of the baby full time so my husband could work at his job full time. I wanted to do everything at the house. I wasn't asking for help from people or even professionals. And then 5 days into it at home, I turned to my husband and I said, look, I've got to get some help because this is just so hard for me, and otherwise I'm going to have to go into the hospital because this is just, I've put way too much pressure on myself. I'm a people pleaser by nature. It's super hard for me to do that. So I asked for help. He helped more. I started going to postpartum support groups. I also had a lot more family come over. You know, you need to see people. So I kept inviting people over or going on walks just to see other people. But the thing that was the best for me during this time, because I was beating myself up for everything, for getting myself into this situation, for not being able to do it, for asking for help, was self-compassion. And self-compassion has really changed how I interact with life in general, and not just this postpartum stage. It helps me not get to that overwhelmed point, or if I do, I can let it all out and then I can let it go. The first one is self-kindness. And self-kindness is very simple. It's treating yourself like a good friend that you would, that's suffering or going through something really hard and difficult. But it's really hard to do for ourselves. It's very hard. And then common humanity is that one uniting factor that unites us all. So for us, it's motherhood and many other things we might find out about each other today. And just knowing that you're not alone in this. It feels so much better when we know that. And the third part is mindfulness, and that's where the exercise comes in. That's where the tool comes in. So that's doing some sort of exercise like a meditation or a journal, but not just any meditation or journal, something that actually is going to work for you, because we're going to talk about what is it that we need to hear today for ourselves. So this is creating your own self-kindness statement. And my example was, I'm unworthy of love, to I deserve love. I wasn't really accepting other people's love, like in the story. I wasn't really accepting help because I didn't feel like I deserved it. And once I was able to kind of have that mindset shift a little bit, which I still need to do my self-compassion exercises daily, it really changed how I related to myself and others. So mindfulness is next. So how do we actually make this into an exercise? Now that we've gotten our feelings out, how do we actually make it something that's going to happen daily? So next I want to have you pick your top 3 learning styles that you're most comfortable in. And the third step is creating your routine. So a routine based on your top 3 learning styles. A good thing is putting down affirmations that you know you need to hear. This is kind of the first step to doing self-compassion. And the next thing is practicing it. Practicing it throughout the week and continuing it for a long time is what really reshapes that defining thought. Thank you so much for having me. Feel free to contact me, and then I think we might have time for questions as well. So, thank you.